Today's talk is micro-focused on 5 Model 3 problems that we should all be aware of. We're going to also do our weekly review or most update review on new developments on Tesla afterwards. So stick around for some other comments. But I thought that by separating this, it allowed it to be a video that sort of sits out for a long time from here. This is Greg for Tesla Fan Insight. Thanks once again for joining us. If this is your first time on our channel, please take time to like and subscribe, and your comments are always appreciated. Also, please be aware that if you're not seeing this video on YouTube, it's been stolen, and we'd appreciate it if you come over and visit with us on Tesla Fan Insight at YouTube. It allows us to keep our channel going. Also, please watch 8 or 9 seconds of our ads. We minimize the number of them, but would appreciate you spending a little time there. If I would appreciate it. We would appreciate it. Today's talk is kind of interesting because I'm a Tesla fan, love the vehicle, have my Model 3 on order, so the plan is set in place. But I thought it was worth stepping back to note that there are kind of 5 issues that I think we all should be aware of when dealing with all Tesla vehicles, and especially the Model 3, hence the name of the show that we've chosen to do today. So the first part of the show focuses on our 5 things to be aware of, and there's no particular order, is what I want to call autopilot issues. As we all know, Tesla separated from what is now a part of Intel called Mobileye, and so all of the Tesla vehicles up until November of 2017 are all Mobileye enabled vehicles. So you'll actually notice that the Autopilot actually performs better because Mobileye controls 90% of the Autopilot activity in the world, and all that data and years of software development has created an issue. So I wanted to just highlight the fact that still it's declining in terms of there's an issue that's occurring, which is there's a declining number of accidents, but one of the biggest problems that's showing up is if you're driving your Model 3 along a freeway and there's a fire truck or another fixed object next to that freeway, there's a high likelihood that that vehicle will actually segue and hit whatever that object is. So one of my recommendations, if you're an owner of any model of Tesla, but particularly those running on the Tesla Vision since mid-2017, highly recommended that you avoid using Autopilot if there are large objects like accidents or fire trucks or other vehicles on the side of the road. So this is the first in the issue. Is this going to be solved? Absolutely. I think we're 6 months or a year away from this being baked into the software as well. But I definitely still think it's a problem that's worth noting, and in general, caution around the Autopilot and obeying the rules that are articulated by Tesla, I think, are a very wise move. The second thing that comes to mind is the whole area of maintenance. So there isn't a lot of maintenance, but we'll call it supply chain issues related to repair work on all Tesla vehicles. So as we all know, Tesla is in a situation right now where they're trying to push out as many vehicles as they can, as fast as they can, and get them sold, because all of that capital is needed in order to grow or stabilize the company and continue its growth process to its true mission statement. One of the things that's really sacrificed in this space has been how well existing vehicles are serviced, particularly after they have accidents. As we've discussed previously, there's an issue that's going on here where Tesla if you look at a Tesla, there's a perception that the car is the same car. So what's happening is Tesla has a continuous improvement process. One of the differences between GM and Tesla, for example, or GM and some of the other major makes and Daimler and others, is that Tesla is 80% vertically integrated. What they tend to do is have internal construction of a lot of what they do with their car. So if you're a GM, for example, with 25% internal construction of the vehicle, if you want to make a change in something, you have to develop the change internally, send it to your supplier. They then send you samples and you figure that out until it's now done and can be baked into vehicles. In Tesla's case, there's a continuous improvement process where if you were able to look at, let's say, a Model S or a Model 3, the car will actually be about 25% different every 3 or 4 months. So this is great because the buyers of subsequent vehicles are learning from what Tesla has found in earlier vehicles that did or did not work well, and then there are modifications being made to help prepare for the current vehicles that are on the road. So I think those of you who are getting Model 3s towards the end of 2018 or early 2019 are benefiting from all the problems that the earlier users have experienced. But one of the challenges is that because of this continuous improvement process and the 80% vertical integration, we end up with a really interesting problem that occurs, which is you don't have any spare parts that are sitting on the shelf. As we've discussed, Tesla came up with a great idea. They have authorized body shops that are beyond the Tesla repairs out there, and they doubled the number of body shops. But the problem is that while they doubled the number of body shops, the number of parts was still the same. In fact, the number of parts was even lower because all those parts are being concentrated on new vehicles as they're being produced. And therefore, you're not generating the parts inventory that you need to service, any kind of accidents that might occur. Now, I think it's kind of interesting because one of the benefits we're going to get from the Model 3 that you don't have with the Model X and S is what's called in the auto business the 100,000 rule. Most cars don't make money until 100,000 units have been produced. One of the other things that happens at 100,000 is there are now enough vehicles out on the road to allow people to make money if they choose to build parts for that vehicle, because there are enough users currently and future users that might be wanting to buy those parts. And so I just think it's kind of good, it's a problem if you rack up your car. So as I've shared previously, if you do have the type of damage that allows the car still to be driven, go ahead and keep driving it regardless of which vehicle it is, because the length of time it'll take for you before you get that thing repaired will be a lot longer than expected if it's not some kind of a routine repair. So I'm hopeful that we get to the point where parts will be ubiquitous, but this is an issue. Now, speaking of issues with parts, one of the latest and this would be number 3 issues that's come up, is choose your paint color carefully. Now, if you do some reading, what you'll learn is that there's a black vehicle, there's a white vehicle, and then there are colors in between, be it red or blue or green, etc. What owners are finding is that the simpler the color that you've chosen for your vehicle, the higher the likelihood that you can get that vehicle fixed faster. So in the case of the Model 3, the black vehicle is $1,000 cheaper than the other colors because they're cycling a large number of those vehicles through, and therefore it makes it a cheaper one for Tesla to produce. So we might put on the list that choosing a color that can be repaired easily might also be in your best interest based on this issue. The 4th item that I wanted to put on this list is what I call the need for speed. So Elon Musk has articulated that he's been on a track to get a dreadnought pirate ship built, meaning that his goal is to have an environment where you have few, if any, technicians in that space. and that vehicle is being built uh, primarily by robots with technicians repairing the robots. Well, as we all know, he's had to rip out a whole bunch of these robots in the Dreadnought factory and go back to human beings. And one of the holdup in productions right now is the fact that the performance and the dual motor edition are being built in a tent by hand, while the primary single motor with extended is being built still in the factory at pace. So Elon has frequently talked about the fact that his goal is to have production at a speed where you can run along the production line, and that's how fast vehicles are coming out. I want to note that there's a difference between Toyota's build process and Tesla's build process. Toyota's strategy is, if there are any hiccups on the line, stop the line, find the defects, fix them before we have to fix them in a car. Tesla doesn't have this. Tesla is in a build all the cars you can as fast as you can and fix them in the parking lot afterwards, and hopefully you've caught all the errors that or defects that might have occurred based on the manufacturing process. But the issue that's coming to mind is that in the mind of a customer, the customer wants a quality vehicle that performs well, that will last. In the mind of Tesla, there's a real need for speed relative to production speed and what's occurring. And as a result, we're ending up in sort of a pseudo production focus by Tesla, but more of a speed of manufacturing focus right now. And I think that this is introducing issues that customers will find out about in large numbers later on, even if they're not, initially noted. So there are some cases where the need for speed can really be a drag. And where it's a drag on Tesla as well is when you have very few service facilities, but you have large numbers of cars out there and you have a shortage of parts, you could end up with a nightmare in terms of, like, you need your car repaired or you need to get into the service facilities, and that's very difficult to do. So what's interesting to me is Tesla's come up with a great idea to help solve this, which is routine repairs are being done by mobile vehicles. Good idea on one hand, but now you have mechanics that are very expensive driving around, and for half their time they can't bill customers because they're driving to meet a customer to do some kind of repair. Another unfortunate element of what's going on with the Model 3. So in general, what I wanted to introduce was and is ideas that allow people to sort of look through when you see a vehicle of any type. Toyota's made a huge amount of money and destroyed other companies because customers know when they see a Toyota vehicle, there's going to be a certain amount of longevity you get out of that car. There's going to be a certain amount of defect management that you get out of that car, and it's designed in on layer after layer. So as a result, we have Toyota customers who refuse to leave the brand because they build that brand loyalty based on how they've been treated by the company. And my hope is that as Tesla moves out of the desperate to produce zone, we enter this zone of, oh, we really are quality focused. How can we make sure that we bake that quality into every vehicle? The one area that we all know about is the fact that Tesla's batteries are targeted in that 10 to 15 year range for use. So there is one area where the quality, is absolutely a no-brainer, and in terms of what they're trying to accomplish. So I'm going to close out now my whole discussion of 3 things or 5 things to be aware of in general that I think are problems with the Model 3 that you should be aware of as well, and jump into Jerry. You've thrown up a lot of great comments there. I appreciate your sharing. Anyone else that's on our live feed, I'd love to have your questions. Jerry, there's a problem happening with Autopilot for Tesla and for everybody else, which is the roadways that were built don't have the sensors to help computers in the form of cars manage themselves very well. So I'm hopeful the government gets in and mandates a whole bunch of rules so that we can have sensors that allow these vehicles of all types to do well. I think it's great that Tesla's building a chip But the issue is that if everybody's mandated to do the same thing, is the chip really necessary? Because you could just use what everybody else is using and not worry about it. It's nice that you're building a chip. You're going to have about a 24-hour advantage over competitors because they have more money to spend and they have their research dollars spread across more manufacturers. So Tesla's doing some great work. That great work is going to be sort of copied and baked into other vehicles pretty quickly. So I don't think it's a bad thing. I just don't think it's going to be a long-lived thing, but you're consuming resources in that space that I think could be used better elsewhere. Um, you know, that's the thing, is a lot of people are talking about, I don't want more regulation to occur. Guess what? If I said to you, different companies are going to be allowed to build different lanes of traffic, and you get to drive on which lane it is that you choose, that's ridiculous. The roadways are a public good. So whether or not your AI works or the other person's AI doesn't work means that person could crash into me. So I believe there's a public good called the public roadways, and everybody needs to have the latest technology so that we can make sure that nobody gets hurt because they're using technology that's a day old, a month old, a year old, whatever, because that's too risky to risk the health of the entire population in that regard. We're at about 17 minutes here, and I wanted to start to close out. I get a chance, yeah, that's possible. More tolls is possible. As I close out, I'm starting to learn things about other areas, so I'm closing out my Tesla activity discussion right now and jumping into our brief health component. I just did my 20 leg lifts on each leg, and I do that every day now. I'm gonna go get my 5-pound weight. It was recommended by rheumatologists that you do that because it strengthens your thigh muscles or the quad muscles, allowing the knee to be more locked in and reducing the chance of damage to that. One of the specialties of rheumatologists is autoimmune diseases, so cases where the body starts attacking itself. One of the specialties of this doc in particular is a whole entity called gout, where basically acid is being stored in the joints and it creates autoimmune disease issues. Wanted to encourage all of you, particularly if you're 50 plus, to learn a little bit about gout and notice the foods, etc., that are immediately converted into acid and stored, which results in swelling of hands and feet, etc. I was really surprised to see that alcohol was one thing that's converted immediately into purine and then eventually into acid and stored around the joints, creating all kinds of other issues. So I just thought that, as a public service announcement, you might want to note the type of diet that you might want to modify to as you age, because I think it'll help you live a happier life. And things like don't eat within 2 hours of going to bed, so you can avoid acid indigestion, is another idea that's part of the collection. And I like to sort of dig in and introduce ideas that are worth research, I think, that'll enhance the quality of life for our viewers. So at any rate, that's my health pointer today. Autoimmune diseases related to rheumatologists was the one item I wanted to add in today. This is Greg for Tesla Fan Insight. Thanks for joining us, one and all of you that have been on and making comments. It's really appreciated. In German, it's Tschüss, macht's gut. In French, it's au revoir. In Spanish, it's adios. Ni hao ma. Random Chinese. Lahitraot in Hebrew. Hoda hafez in Farsi. Farvel, Dutch. And in Jamaica, we say, no respect, walk good man. Bob, thank you for saying hello and joining us today live. And look forward to our next encounter. And I wanted to thank you, Jerry, for your suggestion of comparisons between the iPace and Tesla as a suggestion. Hungarian Zia. Nice. Thanks for the for the, I don't know how to pronounce it, but I'll just say Zia in Hungarian from Bob Ware. Thanks, Bob. Any rate, have a great day, and thanks for now. Look forward to any and all comments. Please remember to like and subscribe, and your like has an impact, and 8 seconds of the ad would be appreciated. Have a great day, and bye for now.